What's happening? This is Ryan Dawkins, and you're tuning in to The LOFT.
Has brought out the best of me.
Would you ever do bare knuckle?
Yeah, I would. I am good friends with Dave Feldman.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I my first 5 pro fights were with Art of War, and at the time, Dave was the owner of Art of War.
Okay.
But spanning back I went to school with his son, and we wrestled together. So, yeah. So he flew me out to Miami when they did a show in Miami, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. And what Eddie said is right. Like, it's a shorter fight, so like, yeah, you don't have gloves on, but if you're taking however many punches you take in a 15-minute fight, well, if it's a 6-minute fight, you're gonna take half as many punches.
Yeah. I wonder how that way again, because it's shorter fights. It's also like just no padding or anything, but I feel like it makes it harder to make contact now.
Well, like I think there's 2 parts to that. So one, obviously you're gonna get more like cosmetic issue, like you're gonna get cut more, which I'm okay with. I'm totally fine with getting cut. I've been cut a million times. Like, half of my MMA fights, I have to get stitches after. I'm okay with that. It's the brain damage, obviously. But the guys are so much more likely to break their hands in bare knuckle, that they're not throwing as wild. They're kind of more careful and picking their shots.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. My buddy, he's huge, but he works at Maggie's, and he signed up for bare knuckle. I wonder if he got in. He's just a nut. He's a crazy dude, and like
with no fighting experience.
Yeah, he has street fighting. No,
okay.
So, but it's
no. I mean, they're good too, though.
Yeah. So you said you would do bare knuckle eventually?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, you're coming off another win.
Yeah.
Which is great, and so what's like your goal next? What's the next goal in middleweight?
Start climbing the rankings.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into this sport to be a world champion, and I've seen guys, even in my division, become world champions there. I have way more talented than.
Yeah.
They have more skills than. So my goal is to be a world champion, but short-sighted, like I want to fight in Philly. I think the ultimate goal is to have a card in Philly.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Yeah, and I know that they were talking about it before, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago when COVID was still. They actually had they were in talks with them. They had it set up, and then they brought back the mask mandate, and then they were like, we're not touching it. So then they backpedaled.
I think there'll be another UFC card in Philly soon. I'm looking through your your record now. So your last fight, was September, and then when you want to plan to fight again, you think?
I would love to fight end of February, early March.
So you've been really active, like the past 2 years, which is great. So you got your start on The Ultimate Fighter. I saw, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you went on The Ultimate Fighter. And then you lost your second fight or something like that, whatever. But then you got a call, right?
Yeah.
And so how did that call happen?
Yeah. So at the time I was looking for fights elsewhere. Like I was like, I guess I'll have to find a fight for a regional promotion. I'm in the grocery store. My phone rings, and honestly, I usually never answer a random number. Like I just wouldn't answer it. But for whatever reason, I don't know, it was weird. So I answered it, and he's like, Andre, this is Mick Maynard. And I'm like,
yeah,
what's up? He's like, can you make weight in 3 weeks? And I was like, yeah, for sure. He's like, all right, I'll see you there.
It's crazy.
And I was just like, I hung up the phone, and I was like, there's no way that was real. Like, I had to have been a prank phone call.
Yeah, because you don't think the matchmaker of UFC is going to call you on a random.
Why didn't he call my manager? Why didn't he call? It was so random, and I was just like, this guy's someone's fucking with me. Someone's messing with me. So then after sitting there, I went back and I called my manager, and I was like, yo, Mick just called me. What's the deal? He's like, yeah, it's real. And at the time, I thought they were going to have me fight Trayshawn, who ended up being in the finale.
Yeah.
But no, they were like, oh, we want you to fight
Gilmore, right?
Yeah, Gilmore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, all right, let's do
Crazy.
it.
Yeah. And you did your thing, which is, it's crazy how it happens, man. And like, so when you were off the show, were you like, oh shit, like how am I gonna, like you were trying to find your next path in the UFC, you still thought it was like liable, like possible to get in, right?
Yeah, because I knew that they were really like high on me.
Your first pick, right?
I was the first
for
pick.
Ortega, right?
Yeah, for Ortega. And there was a moment on the show where we like got in trouble for something stupid. Like, I mean, you got to keep in mind that like we're stuck in a house with no phone, no internet, no cable, nothing for like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
So like if you can find any source of dumb fun, like So we got in trouble for something and they like sat us down. They were real pissed. And one of the things they said was like that the producers that like we kind of like pissed off or like upset in the process had like a couple days before had gone to Dana and was like, oh, we have like the next big star. We have like our next, and talking about me. And then he was like, and you go and ruin it.
Yeah, but like,
but nonetheless, I got that out. So I was like, oh shit, he already went and said that. Like I'm in good standing with them.
Yeah.
So even though I lost my in the semis, like I knew that they liked me and I was in good standing with them.
And one fight doesn't, and it was like some crazy submission.
Yeah.
So it was
and
like,
he's gone on to do very well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, because you look at like the John Jones, you look at the McGregors, like the people who make these mistakes and they get, they get lesson after lesson, but they're still able to do their thing. And so when you got off the show, you went, obviously, how long have you been at Marquez for?
Probably like maybe four before I was in the UFC, so 4 years. So what happened was during COVID, Balance I used to be with Balance, and Balance shut down. They were like, oh, whatever. So they shut down, and Daniel Gracie at the time, and John, they stayed open. They're like, no, we're gonna keep the doors open. So a couple of us from Balance, me, Pfeiffer, James Lyons, like a couple of us left Balance and went to John's.
Nice. How's that been for you though?
It's been awesome. Like John is in the gym like all day, every day. Like I will say, like, we fight and then we'll take like 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, but he's in there like all the time. So it's like there's always, and he keeps building and building, getting more guys. Like I was just talking about now, like all these Russians are coming, like all these Eastern European, Tajikistan, like Georgians, like all these Eastern European guys are coming to Philly, because they heard there's good training. So now we're just got like a whole batch of just killers.
And they look at you, Brady, and all these guys who have had like really good success in the UFC, and I'm sure they want a piece of that. And the Russians are no joke too, man.
No joke, bro. No joke. They're disciplined. They train really hard. They're very consistent. They're tough. Do
you find that like training with them helps you with your improving your game?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so,
and most of them come over with some level of a wrestling background, so it's like perfect.
And so you're you're a ground game specialist, right? Is that what you like to do? So when did you really start the mixed martial arts fight? Like when did that begin for you?
So I've been fighting for 10 years. So I wrestled in college, and I graduated 2015, and then I started doing jiu-jitsu pretty much right away. And I was just obsessed with jiu-jitsu. So I would do like gi in the morning and then no gi at night. So I would just train jiu-jitsu. I did that like every day for like 6 months. And then I ran out of money. I came back to Delco, and I started going to this gym, World Class Martial Arts. And it was just like a jiu-jitsu school. They had a karate program, but there was a kid there, Ryan Kemmer, who was getting ready for a fight. And I was like, yo, how do you fight? Like, how do you get a fight? He's like, oh, just message this guy. And I hit this guy up, and he found me an opponent like the next day.
Oh, wow.
He was like, yeah. So at that point, I was like, all right, I better go to an MMA gym. That was like a jiu-jitsu school. I better go to an MMA school. So I went to 302 in Wilmington.
Yeah.
Trouble and Timmy Williams. There's a whole bunch of fighters.
You took the fight without even having any.
So I walk in the door and I'm like, I got a fight in 30 days. Can you guys get me ready?
Yeah.
Joe Stripling was the Muay Thai coach, and I was like, I said I got a fight. They're like, well, what's your background? I was like, well, I wrestled Division I at UNC Bloomsburg, and I've been doing nothing but jiu-jitsu for the past 6 months. Like, don't worry about it. We got you.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they're like, we wrestled Division I. You're good. You'll be all right.
Where was the first fight at?
The Borgata in AC. I sold like a butt ton of tickets.
Yeah.
I did really well on tickets. I fought this kid Jesse Stokes. Took him down, submitted him in like a minute and a half.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's sick. Hell yeah. And so, after you have your first win, you're like, okay.
Obsessed. Immediately, like, this is what I want to do.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, from there, when did Marquez come into play?
So, I turned pro in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I turned pro in 2018. And I stayed with that team, the Balance, like, web of Balance. There's like a bunch of different schools with under Balance, but yeah, I stayed with them for a little while, and then, like I said, they closed down during COVID, and I ended up through that process we switched to Marquez.
Okay.
Well, first it was Daniel Gracie's first.
Yeah.
We went to Daniel Gracie's, and but Daniel left and went to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
He moved to Vegas, took over a gym in Vegas, and then the gyms now, it's like Team Taino, Jonathan Webbs, and Marquez.
Yeah.
They're all basically guys that got their black belts from Daniel.
Okay.
Eddie and Jonathan, and then John is a striking coach. So,
okay. Nice.
Yeah, they all have their own gyms, but that's where we basically train out of.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a little bit of a turn a little bit, but I'm a huge fan of like Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, like, how with the process of getting on that show, and then when you got on the show, how that experience was. We kind of dove into it a little bit, but how did you end up getting on that show?
So, I fought my first 5 pro fights. I had all first and second round finishes. So I was 5-0 with 5 finishes, and then COVID hits, and the promotion that I was fighting for couldn't put on a show in Philly. I don't know if it was the governor or whatever. They were saying no events.
They didn't sanction it.
Yeah, no sanctioned events in Philly they were like lockdown. So I couldn't get a fight for 9 months. If you weren't in the UFC, you basically weren't getting a fight. So 9 months went by, and I was forced to sign with a manager. And this manager ended up putting my name. He was like, "Yo, the Ultimate Fighter's coming back." It was off for 3 years. Like, Ultimate Fighter's coming back, and it's your weight. We're gonna put your name forward.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You got the call?
Yep.
What was your reaction when you got the call?
I was thrilled. I was like, dude, I watched The Ultimate Fighter since I was a kid. Like, I watched all of, you know what I mean? I watched basically I would say I watched most of the seasons. Yeah.
Did you like the McGregor season?
With Uriah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he do more than one? Or no, he did with Eddie?
He did. No, he did. He did one with Uriah, and then he came back recently. But it wasn't
with Chandler.
With Chandler,
yeah.
It wasn't anything too.
I know.
Great,
I didn't watch the Chandler one.
Yeah. Do you have a fighter, or obviously now these guys are all your competition, but did you have fighters that you looked at and were like, yo, like I wanna be like him one day, or do you have like an idol or role model in?
Well, when I was young, it was Vitor Belfort.
Okay.
Bro, Vitor was like just shredded. Like, just like the epitome of just like a meathead. He was the phenom. Vitor, the phenom, Belfort. And, dude, he was... for me, he was the epitome.
And you take really good care of your body, like you do. So what goes into like the regimen of that? I know you do some stuff with, like, obviously you train a lot. You do performance meal prep. What goes into your
shout out to performance meal. Shout out to Jesse Butt.
Yeah, so it's funny. So they send me meals too every week. Like, so I've been like eating great with them. So it's awesome.
I've been with them for 4 years. Yeah, or a little, maybe even a little bit more. But like when I get closer to the fight. I'll just text him and be like, "Hey, only send me clean meals," and he'll send me the clean meals, and dude, the weight just it does actually really help. Yeah. And so that's actually something I did want to get into. Anytime I have a fighter on, I'm so curious about weight cutting. Yeah. So
how like grueling is that on your body? Like the weight cutting and the.
Let me finish the Ultimate Fighter first.
Okay, yeah.
So they pick us, and we're still in COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you'll find this part interesting.
Yeah.
So they fly 11 guys at each weight. It was 185 and 135, and they fly 11 guys at each weight out to Vegas, but only 8 make it. So
there's a tryout on.
No. They built in an extra 3 because everyone was popping for COVID, so they didn't want to have 8 guys and then need another guy. So during this week, there was a week that they quarantined us in a hotel by ourselves. Bro, it was horrible.
Yeah, a whole week.
A whole week. They only let us out for 1 hour to exercise.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like prison.
So what do you do when you're? What do you do?
Dude, I binge watch like every Showtime season. I was doing like deck of card workouts in the room. Like meanwhile, you're about to go fight in a tournament, so you're like trying to stay in shape. Yeah. Every day I would run down to the new stadium. It was like the whole all black Raider Stadium, and then I would just like do a couple loops around the stadium. Security would like come kick me out, and I'd run back.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. So then at the end of the week, they're like, "Hey, make sure you watch the fights tonight." And on the fights, they showed the 8 people that made it. So the 3 that didn't make, I think like 1 or 2 tested positive for COVID, and they probably sent them back right away.
And then 1 didn't make it.
But a couple went out there, quarantined by themselves in a hotel room for a week. They gave them $750 and sent them home.
That's insane.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a kid from Maryland that was one of the 3 that didn't make it, and I know him, but he was out there and they sent him home. I always felt bad for
Imagine getting sent home from like living your dream and you get a $750 check. It's crazy.
It's pretty shitty.
So let me ask you this question then. Obviously, I don't like playing what ifs, but do you think if you had a proper, like if it wasn't COVID and let's say it was 2022, obviously it was still COVID-ish. Let's say it was like this year.
Yeah.
And you went in and there's like a fresh season, like, you know, no quarantine or nothing. Do you think you would have done better in the show?
No.
So you think it's just okay. And so what did you take from being on the show? Like, what did you learn?
Bro,
yeah.
It was, so they picked me. I was the first pick for my weight class. I was Ortega's first pick. And they bring us up in the back and they're like, who wants to fight? I had watched The Ultimate Fighter, like I said, like every season, most of the season I had watched. So I knew, like strategically, I want to fight first because I want that time in case you get banged up before your next fight. I want time to recover.
You don't even think about that.
So he circles us up and he's like, yo, who wants to fight? I'm like, me, I want to fight. And I was the only one that raised my hand. So he was like, yo, I really respect that. Like, pick who you want to fight.
No way.
Yeah, so there was this kid from Alaska that said he learned jiu-jitsu on YouTube. So I was like, I want him. Took him down, submit him in like a minute.
I saw, yeah.
So I get 6 weeks like of I don't have a fight coming up. I don't have to cut weight. Like I'm there to get better.
Yeah.
So every day, Henner Gracie is Brian's jiu-jitsu coach.
Yeah.
Like Brian Ortega. Like these are like, bro.
The best of the best.
The best of the best are coming in and they're like, who wants to work today? And this guy's hurt. This guy's got to cut weight for his fight. This guy's doesn't want to, and I'm just like, me.
Yeah.
Bro, I would literally get 2-hour privates from Henner Gracie or Brian Ortega every day.
That's insane.
Yo, and I would ask Henner, I'd be like, yo, if you like were to come out to Philly and like do a seminar, like how much would you charge? And he's like, it would have to be 2 sessions, at least 100 people in each session, charge like $150. So I'm like, all right, like 20, 30, 30 grand to get this guy to come out here and do a seminar. Yeah. And I'm getting it every day.
That's great. You got that.
Yeah.
That's priceless stuff,
bro,
dude.
Priceless. So my first, my fight name's the Anacondre.
Yeah.
All that shit I learned from Henner.
That's insane.
My whole front headlock series is from Henner.
Do you still keep in touch?
Yeah, I was just out there in LA. I just got back.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more valuable. Obviously, having eyeballs is valuable, but like getting that experience to put into the octagon is super valuable, and those relationships too.
Yeah.
So I see you still keep in touch with Brian Ortega and the whole team. So what were you out there for? Just training?
My manager's out there who I met through Brian, and I went out there to train with Henner, and I have another friend out there. So yeah, mostly training though.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so after the second fight, when you lost, and after that fight, what was going through your mind?
I was disappointed, obviously, because I had won the first round. I knew that it was. Look, they sat me down after the quarterfinals, and they were like, "Who do you want to fight? Like, do you want to fight Brian or do you want to fight Urbina?" And I was like, Brian. I just knew that I could beat him, and I know that if I fought him today, I could beat him.
Yeah.
It was just, it just didn't go my way.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
But it's a tough one. I was disappointed in myself because, like I said, they gave me the choice. Like everything was set up for me to succeed. Like they wanted me to win. They were high on me, and then I lost, and it was just disappointing.
It happens, but it's also like a chip on your shoulder,
for sure,
right? And so you've been training like a monster, and you just had your most recent fight, which was great, and so you're taking stuff from the Ultimate Fighter, and you're taking stuff from your career at Marquez. So what's obviously the goal is to be middleweight champion.
Yeah.
So right now in that journey, how do you keep yourself going? And like, how do you keep that mindset? Like, like the tunnel vision. How do you keep?
Bro, I watch the fights.
Yeah.
I watch the fights. I watch the middleweights, and I'm just like, I fucking beat this guy.
I want to beat this guy.
I was like, I can beat this guy. I can beat this guy.
Yeah. So
I watch Bo Nichols, and I'm just like, dude, I would trash this.
That
dude.
was that whole card. That was a good card, but that fight, I actually lost money on that card. So fuck Bo Nichols. But no.
You took Paul Craig.
No, I took Bo Nichols, but I took him by TKO. Cause you know why? Because I thought, okay, he's they both have ground game, but to me, I was like, this is the night he becomes a superstar and just takes him out. But didn't happen.
Paul Craig, yeah, and I mean it's not a bad thought process.
Well, Paul Craig's he's a goon. He's got he's got a good chin and all that stuff, and he was eating shots. But I just thought it was really going to be because Bo Nichols 6-0, 7-0 now. I thought during that fight I was like, this is like the time where every superstar because they want him to be a superstar and I was like, this is his breakout moment, but just kind of like didn't really happen. But he's still so new.
He's very new. He's only 6-0. That's like the dangerous part of jumping up the rankings too fast.
It's expectations.
Which, like, Paul Craig was, I think he was like 17 or he was ranked up there. It was a huge step.
Yeah, I'm going up now into the rankings.
Bo.
Yeah,
I will give him credit. That was a huge step.
Yeah, and
I think if you listen to Dana, what he's talking about is that he's probably going to fight someone in that 20 to 30 range next, which
they're gonna give
is
him,
me. I'm in that 20 to 30 range. I've been calling Bo out forever.
Really?
Yeah.
Would you would take that fight in a heartbeat, right? Yeah.
Come on, dude.
I know.
Yeah. Bro, Bo is good because he's very good at scrambling. Like if you follow him in wrestling we have like the Dan Hodge Trophy. It's just the Heisman of wrestling.
Right.
It's the greatest wrestler of all the weight classes of that year. Well, Bo, he was the Dan Hodge Trophy winner. But he's good because he scrambles really hard for like the first 2 minutes. We didn't get to see any wrestling in his last fight, but that's my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's like the scrambles. Like I can scramble with anybody.
Yeah, take him down. Yeah, that'd be. Would you ever call him out?
I have a million times.
Really?
Yeah.
He hasn't said no response yet. No.
Not yet.
You maybe get one more fight under your belt, one or two fights, and get on the kind of like the Sean Brady route where like he just kept winning.
I think if we rally for a Philly card, like if Philly really starts pushing for a card at the Wells Fargo Center.
Well, let me ask you.
I think he would be really.
He'd be into that.
Yeah, State College is right there. He can have his whole crew come down for the fight.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy Jordan just did a card art for him, and I didn't realize he was like a Penn State guy.
Yeah.
I think if you get, have you talked to Sean Brady about that?
About Philly?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're coming back to Philly. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Especially with how much recent talent.
The time right now would be perfect. Like a March or February, April. Like that timeline's perfect because none of the Philly fighters are booked right now. Like me, Sean, Pfeiffer, Pat, Nurse Latan, no one's got a fight booked. It's like the first time. Usually, like, we all fight at different times and someone's booked at all times. Jeremiah, like, nobody has anything booked.
Yeah.
So you could put all 6 of the Philly fighters and throw Algio on there, and then you have a Philly card. It's like perfect timing.
It's crazy, yeah. When do you think that could happen? Probably, mid next year? Or
like March. March would be perfect.
You would go late. I guess you wouldn't fight February then, right?
I would wait.
You'd wait, yeah. That'd be sick.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about it now because I haven't thought about that. Because Pfeiffer's he's a monster too, and like Brady's on a tear right now. His last fight was great. He was awesome. So with the team, what do you got? How long have you been together, like as a team? Obviously, you've been with Marquez for a little while, but all these guys there, or have some of them recently come? Or
Nah. So the other UFC guys are Jeremiah Wells. He's a 170 pounder. Pat Sabatini. He's a 45 pounder, and Sean Brady, who's at 170. Those guys have been with started with Daniel, like the Gracie team, since like way before me and Joey got there.
Okay.
And then even after me and Joey got there, then Nursultan came from. He's from Uzbekistan.
Yeah, I saw that. One. Yeah, he's pretty new, right?
Yeah.
Dan was telling me a lot about him.
Yeah.
He said he's a monster too.
He's got like 1 million fights. He's got like 60 pro fights. Like, I don't know, 48 of his 60 fights are by knockout.
That's insane.
Yeah, he's huge. He's like 6'5".
Wow.
And he used to fight. His first fight was at 85, but then he was like, I can go down to 70. I was like, what the? This dude's a monster. And then he made 70. Like,
what
no
do you?
problem.
What's the lightest you would go?
Bro, honestly, 85 is pretty light for me. There would have to be a significant amount of money for me to drop down to 70, and even then, I would need like like 6 months to do it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too. Is like at what cost?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I want to dive into like your the start, right? So obviously you started with your MMA training, but like growing up, so you said you went to Kutztown, you wrestled. You were at UNC for wrestling too?
Yeah.
Really? How long were you at UNC for?
I was there 2010, 11, 12.
You transferred over.
And then I transferred to Bloomsburg. I did 1 year at Bloomsburg and then 2 years at Kutztown.
Okay. Why'd you leave UNC?
Get in trouble, basically be like, I'm done with wrestling. I'm sick of it. And then another school would offer me a scholarship, and I'd be like, all right, okay, let's go.
So you got in some trouble back then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you was that like how you were like in your childhood too?
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
Springfield.
Okay,
Delco.
Right. Oh yeah, Delco. Yeah.
I was always a good student, and I was very good at wrestling. I was good at all sports, honestly. I was very competitive, good at everything I did, but I got in a lot of trouble.
Do you were you always, when you were growing up, was your mindset always to be a fighter, or did that happen somewhere?
I'm a competitor, so my mindset has always been competition. So I won my first wrestling tournament when I was 4 years old, and I've always been a competitor. It was always wrestling when I was a kid, but when I was growing up, my dad ran this karate studio, and we would always watch like the original UFC or WEC days.
Yeah.
It was like Uriah Faber, Jens Pulver, Miguel Torres. Like,
was Chuck Liddell a part of that?
Yeah. So it was like before the UFC had like a 135-pound division. They didn't have all the weight classes. So yeah.
Nice.
But I grew up watching it, and I was always just like, God, that would be incredible.
You just want to get in the ring and fuck someone up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so is it like you have a good relationship with your family?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you still talk to your dad?
Yeah.
The reason why I asked is because you said you're watching these shows with your dad, like WBC and stuff, and like now you're in conversations with Dana. You're able to like, you're on Ultimate Fighter. Do you ever look back on that and be like, yo, like you manifested this? Is something you always manifested?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I will say, I do have to give my dad credit for, he was like one of the best trainers.
Yeah.
Like, he was good. Yeah, he was good. He taught me a lot about nutrition. He was a power lifter. So when it comes to like lifting and training and getting stronger, like that was his forte.
That's awesome.
Like we lifted weights religiously.
Really?
Yeah, like even when I was young, all my friends would wrestle on Sundays. So they would have the meets on Saturdays and then the tournaments on Sundays. And I was never allowed to go to the tournaments on Sunday. Because Sunday, we lift weights. So that's how it was.
Kept you on a strict regimen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, after, you're in college, and when you graduated, was your goal was to always become like a pro fighter? You were like, yo, this is my lane. This is really what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you study when you were?
So... The long story short. So I was a good student. I had a gifted IEP, and when I got to UNC, I wanted to get into business school because they had a top 5 business school. And the coach was like, no, you can't do that. No one on the wrestling team has ever got into the business school. You're on a full scholarship. We need you here at practice and not at study hall. And I was just like, which I found out later was not true. There was wrestlers that had gotten into the business school before if the coaches put in a good word for them.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to do that because I was on full scholarship. He wanted my focus to be wrestling.
He wanted your full attention.
You're here for wrestling.
Right.
Let me make that very clear to you. We're paying $40,000 a year for you to wrestle, not for you to go to school. You're going to take some bullshit classes, and that's it. So that's kind of how it was. Now, fast forward 3 years later, I go to Bloomsburg, and I'm like, okay, now I want to focus on school. My thinking started to shift from being like, so I was like, all right, I'm going to do business school now. Well, when I get to Bloomsburg, they're like, you only have so many credits towards this major, or you'd be ineligible. So you got to do econ to start. Then the second semester, we can switch you to business.
Okay.
I did that, and then at the end of that first semester, they were like, well, you're going to have to do an extra semester of school if you want to stick with business. So that was the moment where I was like, all right.
You had to make a choice.
This is fucked.
Yeah.
Give me the most bull crap major you have, like the easiest one you got. And they were like, communications.
Easy.
Sign me up.
I love it. I mean, yeah, it's so you always had an interest in business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you think that because it was funny, when I went to college, I went to Temple and I studied entrepreneurship my first year.
Hell yeah.
And then I had econ classes, and I'm brutal with numbers. Like, it's not something that competes. I'm more of like the visual guy. And so I studied in LA, or before I studied in LA, I was like, I was to my mom, Trish, I'm like, Trish, like I want to drop out. Like, I'm just not for me. Math isn't for me. She's like, you can switch. So I switched to media and production, went to LA, and kind of like found my lane that way. When you're out of, so you're fighting now, do you think that you have an interest in pursuing any type of business ventures outside of fighting? I know, like, you have the McGregors of the world. You got all these guys who leverage their career in UFC to something else. Is that something you have in mind too?
Yeah, I think real estate right now is. Yeah. I still think like the most profitable.
It's hot.
Investments.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, do you have? So obviously you work with like the people Marquez and all that stuff. Anyone outside of that, you have a good circle outside of that as well.
For fighting.
Just like for friends, just completely turning fighting off.
My family.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And so, do you have a lot of siblings or any siblings?
No, I have 3 kids.
3 kids. Yeah. Okay, so you're inner family.
Right.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was thinking like because I have like a twin sister. I'm like, but okay, so you have 3 kids. Okay, so how old are they?
My stepdaughter's 7, my daughter's 5, and my son Andre Jr. is 6 months old.
Oh wow, yeah, congrats by the way.
You,
yeah. Do you have a vision of where you want him to go? You want to be a fighter too?
Yeah. I mean, he'll be in the gym regardless.
Yeah.
Like he'll be on the mats. He'll be in the gym. He doesn't have a choice.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's just gonna be in the gym doing classes and stuff. As far as competing goes, like that's on him.
It's on him,
if
right?
If he wants to compete, if he wants to fight, if he wants to wrestle, that's on him.
Did you play any sports in high school besides?
Yeah, I played football. I was pretty good at football. I was pretty good at lacrosse too. I made like the Dukes team, but the problem was it started the week of states for wrestling.
Yeah.
So by the time wrestling was over, I already missed the first week, and I had just like killed myself for 2 months getting ready for states and was just burning
yourself.
Yeah.
out,
So I ended up quitting.
Okay. I want to ask. I want to dive into like the mentality of a fighter when you're getting ready for a fight, because to me it's the most interesting thing of all of it. Like I love UFC. Like I just I love watching these fights happen, especially the ones where you don't know what's going to happen. So going into a fight, let's just say a week out, right? Obviously, you do all the research you can on your opponent and all that. But when you're like, you're the week of and you're doing the weight cuts, you're doing the I guess face-offs and press. What's in your mind like when you're getting ready to fight someone?
I think like when the anticipation is building up, it's like you're definitely talking to yourself a lot. You're trying to keep the right mindset. I've been competing for a long time,
right?
But not that doesn't mean I don't get scared or I don't have fears going into a fight.
You're just more used to it.
I am used to it, but I do still get afraid because it's like even though I've been doing it for so long, like the quality of a killer I'm fighting is like, it keeps getting more and more. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, is you're always getting, the competition's always gonna get better, you know? Yeah, because I find it, like I said, I find that stuff so interesting, because it's like, it's just a man versus another man, no one in the ring besides you two, and all that. And so, do you read it all? Is there anything you? Yeah. So, is there anything you've taken from these books that like you've been able to apply to like the psychology of fighting?
I mean, I've worked with psychologists also.
Really?
But yeah, no, I've read the book I'm on right now is it's really good, but it is like really hard. It's called A Course in Miracles, and it's I want to say like 50 hours long.
Really?
And it's monotone, the same voice.
Audiobook.
Audiobook, yeah.
Okay, audiobook.
So it's tough, but there's some gems in there. There's some real, just talking about like basically every issue that you have in your life, and this is obviously me paraphrasing, but every issue that you have in your life is somewhat created by your distortion of your delusion on your perspective. So if you can change that perspective, like you can solve all your problems. That's like the basic premise of it.
I like that a lot. That's true. If you really sit and think about it, my like I said, I probably drop this every single episode, because to me it's so important to me. My grandmom always tells me perspective is everything, and when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's very simple of how you perceive things. You know, because obviously we all have issues in our lives, and like when you can like sit with yourself and collect yourself and think, okay, like this is it, but how do I, if I think of it as, you know, not as bad as that, because your mind, I'm sure you know, goes a million miles a minute, tries to make everything as bad as it possibly can most of the time. If you're able to change your perspective on it, you'll see your mood change. You'll see the actual problem change itself.
I think that, so for me, I got clean, I got off drugs in 2018, and that's what led me to go pro. So I struggled with substance abuse for my whole amateur career, and then I got clean in 2018. That's what led me to get pro. But the point of my story is that that was like the first big perspective change. They in the program they call it the spiritual awakening. That's like your spiritual awakening, is that change in perspective. And like it can be as simple as like, these things were good, now they're bad. For me, that was huge. The other big, huge perspective was, like at the time, I would have considered myself an atheist. Like I thought God was a weakness. Like like needing God. Like, come on, I'm a grown man. Like I don't need God. Like I don't need someone to help me, right? But when you get to the bottoms that I experienced, like the rock bottoms, and then realize that it gets worse and worse and worse, I was forced to change that perspective. I like bang your head against the wall so many times to where you get to the point where you're truly desperate. That's the gift of desperation. God stands for gift of desperation. And I got to that point where I was just so desperate that I had to be like, all right, I need God. You know what I mean? Okay, maybe it's I'm willing to do the God thing. So
what was the first step in that?
Just being desperate. So my rock bottom was I was dope sick in a holding cell, like I was shitting my pants in a holding cell, begging this guard for toilet paper, right? So I had overdosed, and when I came to, I like freaked out. So they end up arresting me. I try to run from these cops. They end up put a stun gun to the back of my head. I pissed myself. They take me to jail, right? Traumatic, super traumatic experience. I get to jail. I get sick. Next day, I start getting sick. And that was like the moment where I had to accept that like I was fucking up. Like I can't manage this.
Your way isn't the highway.
My way is not the highway by any stretch.
Right.
Like I'm not doing a good job here. Just because I can win a fight doesn't mean I'm managing my life. And that was like a very glaring in my face because of this moment.
Man.
They talk about it in the Bible, but it's like the act of providence, and it basically says like where our ways have been so like polluted and so destructive that only like this terrible event can change our perspective, can change our ways.
Man.
And for me, like overdosing, that's what it took for me to be like, all right, and get on my knees and I pray.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then you find God and you find the rehabilitation, and now you're doing this.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty cool. Do you ever? And we'll get into your story too, because like I said, I find that stuff really fascinating. I done a lot of work in Kensington for the past 3-4 years. Like every Thursday I would go get food and clothes out. I haven't done it as much recently, but it was a huge thing that I was into, and because addiction affects my family too.
Yeah.
So like when you're finding yourself, what kept you on the path? Because obviously it can be so easy to relapse, so easy to go back.
My kids were a huge part. Yeah, I had my daughter probably about a year in, and she really, she's changed my perspective too. Like, even though like I got off drugs, like I still can be like a very selfish person.
Yeah,
right?
we all can.
Yeah, and that's like addiction is the most selfish. It's like the epitome of selfishness.
Yeah.
And like you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say like, yo, like I'm being selfish. So having a daughter to where now all of a sudden like it's not all about me. Like my whole life was all about me.
Yeah.
I was the center of attention. I was the one competing. I was the one getting good grades. And when I wasn't doing that, I was getting in trouble. It was always me.
Right.
So when I had my daughter, that was like the first time where it wasn't about me. Like now it's about and dude, I never experienced love like I have from my daughter. Like my daughters, yeah, like
you live for someone else.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because addiction is powerful. And so kind of to give everyone a timeline, so how old are you have a child that's 6 months, right?
Yeah.
And then you have 2 more, right? You have a daughter and
stepdaughter.
a stepdaughter, right? How old is let's go through how old is your stepdaughter? How old is it?
7.
Stepdaughter's 7. How old's your other daughter?
5.
5. Okay, so this is 2018, right? You say, and then you had her 2019. Okay. So because I was trying to build a timeline in my head. So this is around right when you got clean, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what's your daughter's name?
Riley.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so prior to that, when you were in that dark place, did you have people trying to help? Like,
yes and no. I was like very like I tried to keep my issues behind closed doors for a long time. Yeah, I was like for a long time. Towards the end, like I wasn't even really getting high. I was just getting well every day. Like I just needed it to function. So like a lot of it was just I was just physically dependent on something that I needed to do, and it was just a job. Yeah. Like for the most part.
Yeah. Did it ever bring you to like Kensington? And
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just
so when I overdosed, on my way back from Kensington with this kid. My friend, thank God he called the paramedics, but I overdosed in the car on the way back, and he calls the paramedics, and they basically pulled over, and that was where, the paramedics came, the cops came.
It's crazy. I'm trying to put myself in that position and just thinking like, because it's just a crazy way to live, like just being out there and it's being reliant on that, because it's like, at some point it becomes like just like second nature. You know, and like I said, so my uncle is in recovery, and his family life is taking a huge turn because of it, and like you want to feel empathetic sometimes for these people, and like not even this. To me, it's a disease, right? So it starts off as something you try, and then it becomes something that becomes part of you. Do you have like stuff you would say to someone that's in recovery right now, who is going through that battle that you've went through? Is there something you would say to them that like really helped you? I know Riley was a huge part of that. Yeah. But is there anything that you would say that would really help another person going through that?
So I know what worked for me. and we're like not supposed to talk about AA, NA, but like that's what worked for me.
Yeah.
So like, it's like an anonymous program, but I'm just telling you, like, that's what worked for me, is this relationship with a higher power and this support system of AA. And I was like heavily involved in it for like the first 3 years.
It's just support. Yeah. I've been to a few meetings. I'm not in recovery, but I've done stuff around that area, and it's powerful stuff.
The 12 steps were huge in changing my perspective. They brought like your character defects out like glaringly to where you can no longer ignore them. And then they're like, okay, now let's fix them. Like if you're willing to get like really honest with yourself and be like, yo, I'm a piece of shit. I do this wrong. I do this wrong. I do this wrong. Like, and then you fix, like, dude, you're guaranteed to be a better person. You'll be a better person because of it. Everything that I have in my life is because of what the things I learned in AA.
Really?
Yeah, like I can say that with 100%. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have the relationship that I have with God now. I wouldn't have the life that I have today.
That's amazing. And so when you're in that moment of like unveiling the cloak, for lack of better terms, and you're showing all of you and those defects, is there like a death of ego that happens, a humbleness that happens?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
how do you process that? Because you know, we're men, we're very prideful. We're like, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. But it's like, because I'm kind of experiencing that myself too. I'm kind of learning through my relationship with my girlfriend, like a lot of my defects, because you know you're kind of thinking for yourself, and now you gotta think for someone else. Unveiling the cloak and showing all of you, is that a
relationships will reveal, is the number one that will reveal your defects, all your insecurities, everything comes out when you're in a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like I said, when all that came out, you know, when you're showing like, yo, the defects and the things you can fix, like, what was the mindset? What was the thought process? You know, because you know, there's like this, like I said before, the natural, this isn't wrong, but like when you have to actually face the music, what's the steps you take to, you know, fix that stuff?
I mean, I think it goes back, like, I didn't want to do any of it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to like look myself in the mirror and admit, like, you know, I was a piece of shit. Yeah. But like, that it back to the gift of desperation. Like, I was desperate enough to be like, I never want to go back to being dope sick in a jail cell and begging this guard for toilet paper. Like, I don't ever want to go back to that. So I was just, on that fact alone, I was willing to do it. And it was like, every time I didn't want to do something, like my sponsor would tell me or whatever, I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna do it this one time, just this one time. And the second he's not right, like the second he's like, you know, I'm like, oh, I got it. I'm not listening to you no more. But it was like, he'd been through it all.
Right.
So like he knew the whole song and dance. He knew everything. Like, he wasn't gonna lead me the wrong way.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Was that hard to put trust in someone like that?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like, if I want what you have, I got to do what you do. So it's like, it's the same now. It's like, if you want to be a pro fighter, like, you kind of have to listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah, you got to show
up.
up.
What I mean, like, I'm gonna tell you how I got there. This is my experience.
Yeah, and you apply that fight mentality into your career. I find that so, because I knew a little bit of your past, but I didn't know it got to that point. And to me, I always find that stuff fascinating. The redemption stories, you can kind of call it. Now, you know, like I said, it all kind of comes back to you watching, you know, WBC on TV with your dad when you're 5, and now through the trials and tribulations, you're able to say, listen, I want to compete in the UFC. I want to become a top 10 fighter. I want to, you know, fight Bo Nichols. I want to fight all these guys. And it's like, it's to me, I find it really more remarkable. Yeah. Just like, cause like a lot of times what kind of makes me not sad, but something you think about is a lot of people give up on their dreams. Right. And so when you're going through this addiction phase and the struggle phase of your life, which we all always have, was that goal always in your mind?
I would be lying if I said that, like, I didn't think that my hope was dwindling. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Towards the end,
that's fine. Yeah.
My hope was dwindling. The reality was, like, starting to become more and more glaring. Like, my perspective of, like, okay, like, as my disease progressed from, you know, like, I'm not gonna get high until 5 p.m. And then like that would go, and then all right, I'm gonna stop tomorrow. Like, oh, I can stop tomorrow. And then you say that to yourself for however long, and then the reality of like you're not gonna stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
So then it's like I can manage this. Like I can manage this.
Yeah.
And then you're in a cell.
Well, you self-soothe yourself. You know,
You're like, I can fucking manage this stuff.
Yeah. You self-soothe you self-soothe yourself. You victim yourself. And so finding that higher power. How do you keep your relationship with God? How do you keep that relationship?
I just try to talk. Fighting is a big one for me, because fighting gives me that fear, right? So fighting scares me, and when I'm scared, I try to talk to God like as much as I can. I'm like, yo, I'm scared, so I pray. Like my relationship with God is like a very like a personal one. Like I don't really resonate with, not that there's anything wrong with it, I don't really resonate with the people that like get on a microphone and they're like, praise Jesus Christ, like like, and then like they don't talk to him behind closed doors.
Right.
It's like if my God, I don't think God wants me to do that. So
no, yeah.
I think God would appreciate me talking to him and actually developing a real relationship with him behind closed doors.
Yeah, and I can actually say I personally, I kind of confidently say I don't have a relationship with God in the way you do.
Yeah.
I find myself, because I grew up Christian, Catholic, went to Catholic church, all that. Grew up in Northeast Philly, and I found myself practicing a lot, going to, you go to the church, take religion classes, but to me, it didn't resonate with me as much. And the way I look at it now is like an energy, right? And like doing good, putting good out in the universe, hoping it comes back to you, but like putting good out there because you genuinely want to. And I find it interesting now, because I talk to a lot of people about it, and
So what you're saying is that you resonate with the word universe more than the word God.
Yes.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
I don't care what you call it, bro.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want.
Yeah. To me, I find it as like, as long as I'm putting good out there and I believe in like people and I try to help as much as I can, with the blessings that I'm given, that's where I find it. Because to me, the church, I had a really bad relationship with the church, and bro, you know what I mean?
I can't. The Catholic Church, there's a lot of shit I can't support. I got kids, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it goes without saying. And because my grandma is a big church advocate, I used to go to Bible camp, like at the church. I used to do all this stuff.
Look, and the other thing about church, and I don't mean to knock the church.
No, not at all.
Religion has helped a lot of people. Like that's factual.
It's universal.
The religion has helped a lot of people. With that being said, I'm a father. I'm a boyfriend, right? So if I want advice on how to be a better father and a better boyfriend, like, am I gonna go to a priest?
No.
That doesn't have either?
No.
It just doesn't. Right. To me, it's like, I don't know. Like,
that's true.
I think that like. It's a tough.
You know what? We won't have to get into it too deep. I think it makes it tough because of the things we do see. Yeah. And but like I said, I'm more of a universe. That's a great way to put it, because I've been trying to figure that out for a while, and I'm very stubborn on certain things. Like like if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it, or like if there's something I believe in, I really believe in it, and I'm a real universe person. I think as long as we're putting good out there, we're not going out doing all this bad shit. Like, it's fine. And
you can call it universe. I'll call it God.
Yeah. We can call it that.
That's fine.
And it's funny to me because I'm curious. Because I'm like, where did that relationship go? Did it dissipate or did it change? For me, like, because I know a lot.
Yeah. What is the part about the word God that you're like, I don't resonate with that?
I think it's my experience growing up
with the religion.
With the religion, yeah. Because like I said, I do believe in God. I do believe there's something out there.
Yeah, I mean, God exists outside of a church.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially now with the way the world's going. Yeah. You see people have God in their own lives in different ways. It's like it's just that hope that humanity can come back to where it was. Yeah, and we can all be good people, because you just constantly see the media pushing bullshit out there. You see the world. They try to make it a negative place for financial benefit. I believe, but being a good person, believing in the universe, believing that when you put out good, it comes back to you. That's for sure. That's it. So I'm curious as to you said in relationship with God, and we can kind of hop off the God subject, but I really am curious about the mindset of a fighter.
Yeah.
To me, remember my first UFC fighter I had on was Chris Dawkins.
Yeah.
And we dove into that.
Yeah.
Because it was like during his really hot streak when he was really coming up, like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
When I first started my podcast. But to me, you're going into a ring and you have your family, you're a good human being, gentle human being. How do you go in there and flip that switch? Say, I want to fucking kill this dude.
So I think that like fear, if we dive into fear, right? It makes us think this like worst case scenario thought processes, and like for me, it's like, what is the worst case scenario when I'm going into a fight? So like, what is the worst case scenario? It's like, well, okay, I'll probably like get knocked out, right?
Yeah.
Well, like, bro, comparing all of this to being dope sick in a jail cell, it's not that bad, right? And it's like, okay, so what if the worst case scenario is I die? Okay, so like, okay, I got to live a lot longer and live an incredible life after when I was supposed to be dead.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got to do an incredible thing. The worst, and it gets worse, is that like I leave my daughter. You know what I mean? Like I die, I leave my daughter.
Yeah.
That was the part that I struggled with. I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to die and leave my daughter. But I truly believe that like one day I'm going to die, but I will see my daughter again. That's what I believe.
Okay.
And once I came to believe that when the day comes where I die and I will see my daughter, I'm willing to I'm not afraid of shit. Like now I'm not really afraid. Like I can go out and fight and
go fuck someone up.
Yeah. And if look, and just as much as I got to consider all the worst case scenarios, I got to spend just as much time thinking about everything that can go good.
Right.
Everything that can go right.
Right.
Like I can make an amazing life for me and my family.
I like that.
Yeah. For not only me and my kids, but my kids' kids. Like I can make a life for them.
Yeah, you know what happens? We did spend a lot of time talking about going into it. What's your mentality and then the fear, but there's also what if I can do? What can happen if I win? Like what can happen if I become a champion? What can I do for myself, my family if I become a champion? Like I think people naturally put fighting with fear and negative because of how we've always grown up to see it. But when you put it in that way of how, in a perspective, when you put it in that way of like, this is an opportunity to make something for myself and my family. That's a cool way to look at it. And like I said, I'm not in the fighting ring. I'm not in the octagon. I'm not in that world. So to me, because we all fight every day, it's just in different ways.
Yeah, I think anyone can relate to being afraid of stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. I think, fear is a huge motivator and driver in success. You're being afraid to take a leap. Being afraid to go on a show, being afraid to get in an octagon could be the best thing that ever happens to you. You know what I mean? Was there, when you were starting your career and you were going on Ultimate Fighter and, because like I said, I look at that as like a real, spark in your career when people, Uncle Dana and all these guys, like this guy could be it. Like he is it. Was there ever a fear going into that show being like what can happen?
Like what the bad?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Any fight you go in, like what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah. And so when you're in the show and like you had no cable, no nothing in the house.
Yeah.
How did you build a relationship with the guys? How do you make yourself stand out in a show like that?
Honestly, at the time, I really didn't try to, because my thought process, I remember like before, I was like the idea of me being like the Ultimate Fighter would be like, I was like, damn, that would be like, that'd be tough.
Kind of sick.
I said that would be tough.
Yeah.
Right. But then I remember when I got on the show and like I saw everyone, and I would say every night I'd be on bed like, dude, I'm gonna win this shit.
You're better than.
Like I was like, I know I'm better than these guys. I was like this season must suck, because like I'm better. I watch all these guys and I'm like, I'm better. And obviously I didn't win, but like that was my thought process. So my thought process was like, I don't have to do anything crazy on the show to stand out, to be like, I don't want to be like a get a viral video. Like that wasn't my mindset. My mindset was like, I'm gonna win the show anyway, and I don't need to do that shit.
Yeah.
So that was
What's your thought process on success? What is that definition to you? What is that word? What does that mean to you?
To accomplish goals with efficiency. To accomplish goals and dreams, I don't want to say with minimal effort, but yeah, that's to me, that's success.
It's like building momentum.
But obviously build relationships. There's the relationship aspect of success too. Like if I don't have, I mean, I can accomplish all the goals I want, but if I don't have a good relationship with my daughter or my girlfriend or my kids or my mom, it doesn't.
It's it's like at what cost, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm starting to learn that myself. Like, being I've been DJing full time for 2.5 years at this point, and to me, I think about it as success. I'm like, what does it actually mean? Because you can play, I could play a gig at anywhere. Yeah. I'm like, all right, then what? It's always then what to me, and like, I'm sure you experience the same thing. It's like a then what question you always ask yourself when you, like, I remember like, getting my first opportunity to open up for somebody, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm able to play at all these places, and now I'm very blessed to do what I do. But it's like, to me, I'm like, okay, then what?
What's the answer?
To me, I guess it is. I told my roommate this. And this is like, I got done a gig at Barstool. It was like a Sunday night, and we were going to get halal food. And there's this guy who was behind me, who was homeless, sitting on a heat vent, trying to stay warm, and was like, and I tell this story for a very specific reason. The guy was like, "Can I get some food?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." Didn't even think about it. Didn't care how much it cost. Like, just went, got him some food, walked away, called it a day. And I told Chris in the car, I was like, "Listen, like, to me." Because we've had that conversation before. And to me, I said, like, that's a definition of success. When you're able to do what you love every single day consistently, and also be able to take care of someone, and it doesn't completely take something off of you, if that makes sense. Yeah. You're able to help others and give back to others. To me, that's always what I love to do. And I'm very blessed. To me, if I can play music for a living and be able to, another DJ in the industry put this in perspective for me. He said, you're creating a world for someone else to live in. Like, when you're playing music, as crazy as that sounds, you're always taught that you're providing value to a vendor, you're providing value to customers. There is someone who could have, broke up with their girlfriend, or someone who's lost their house and they want to go out to the bar to have a drink, and they go out and hear music that they enjoy and love, and they kind of turn their brain off for a minute. You're creating a world someone can live in. And, like, to me, success is being able to do that consistently and being able to provide for myself and everyone around me. If you're able to do what you love to do every day, and be able to take care of others when needed, and not always thinking of yourself, I think that's success. And success, like I said, and you have to work fucking hard, really fucking hard. That. And it's like staying consistent with it, because something I was always taught as well is, like, the people you meet on the way up are the same people you meet on the way down. Building good relationships, treating people properly, I like that. Yeah, that's always how I try to live life, is just by, treating people how I would like to be treated, as cliche as that sounds, but you're treating someone who comes out to see you, they're paying money to see you. Same thing for a fight, right? Someone's coming out to see you. The least you could do is shake their fucking hand, ask how their day's going, and be a decent human being. Like, 'cause you're not above anyone, But to me, that's success. It's consistency, being able to do being able to do what you love. Because there are people that are millionaires, billionaires, that are unhappy, completely unhappy. I had this conversation yesterday. It's like, people are billionaires who are unhappy. People who make $30,000 a year painting art in their room, in their apartment, are the happiest people in the world. And that art that you do, not to go too much on a tangent, but that art that you do, let's say for hypotheticals, you have this girl who lives in an apartment. She makes $30,000 a year as an art major doing art. She makes a piece of art, sells that for $50K. She was working her past fucking 5 years making art in her bedroom. That can take you to success. Being happy is what leads to success, to me. That's what I think. But I don't know. But a lot of people don't see it that way, though. A lot of people think having money and having all this stuff is success, and to me, it's not. the older I get, you know.
And one thing that I've found is that when I'm happy and I love what I'm doing, like, I do a better job at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm finding the joy in like, you know, in the suffering sometimes, you know, even if it's cutting weight or, you know, stressing about a fight. But, like, if I'm happy and I'm enjoying it and I come at it with a grateful, I could do better.
Yeah. And to me, I always think you're a jerk off if you are the guy who complains about having too much food on their plate because you're one time starving. Remember that? Like
the drive to buy a new car makes some people miserable.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, it's just not what it's about. You know, that comes with it for success, because anything you're successful in most of the time is going to benefit you financially. But it's one of those things where, like, if Andre can go and take his family out to a trip to Disney World because he just won a fight and got fight of the night, $50,000 from Uncle Dana, you know what I mean? Like, that's the things that you got to look at. And you know, and that is true though. The, you know, finding the beauty in the losses as well. You know, because that's always going to build you. I remember, like, when I moved here, I probably had like $2,000 to my name, and like I put the deposit down. I'm like, oh, fuck. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You end up figuring it out, but like that, being at a low point, being at a point where like you don't know what you're gonna do, is what defines you and what like evolves you as a human being. Yeah, you know what I mean.
An empty pocket and a hungry belly.
Yeah,
you know.
In a jail cell.
Yep.
So looking now up into your career with, you know, obviously middleweight champions on your mind. In that journey, I know you're excited to go into that journey, and hopefully you get a Philly card, and you know all that stuff's gonna be amazing. And so, with your journey, you know, continuing, is there anything that you see for yourself in the future? Is there anything you manifest? Obviously, you know, you have the championship, but is there anything that in this life that you manifest for yourself continuously?
I got a vision board.
Okay.
I did the vision board. And yeah, like I got a lot of things on my vision board that I wanted. One that I love is the water. Like I've always just like, I love the water. And so like now I live on the water. And it like wasn't easy to find, but it was something that I really wanted. And like I got jet skis, go kayaking, like the water has always been something that like I'm always happy on the water.
Yeah, how can you
the other thing is like I love, my favorite animal is horses.
Really?
Yeah, so like anytime I would go to another country, I would always, can we ride horses? Like I would always try to schedule the horseback riding. Just always been obsessed with horses. I think they're like just the most incredible. Yeah, so then through my vision board, I found this guy. He's got a farm in Carney's Point. He races horses, and this is God. Like he's just like, yeah, like leading up to their races, he's like, I have to jog them 5 miles a day, leading up to the race. He's like, I'm here by myself, and if I have 2 or 3 horses that are racing that week, I have to do the 5-mile jog with each of them individually. He's like, if you came, I could just teach you everything you want to know about riding horses, but it would cut that time that I have to do it in half. So instead of it being 3 hours, it would be an hour and a half.
Interesting,
bro.
Yeah.
I'm like, sign me up. I want to learn how to, race horses, and So that's cool. So that's my new thing I'm on right now.
You got a horse jockey coming up. Yeah? That's sick. See, that's cool. I like that, and I think the water. I like the water too. The water was always somewhere I would go. Think about my grandma when I was 16 years old. Like she passed away and had a young breakup. That obviously affects you a lot. So I always found myself going to the river. Yeah. And when she passed, and it was funny because at the time I was living in in like the Chalfont area, Northeast Philly area, and my mom was like, like I said, we went through a whole thing. She passed away. You stay at her pop's house for a little bit in Mayfair. You do the whole thing. A few years later, we ended up getting a house called Wooderside in Ben Salem. and it's right on the water. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, I've been there much.
That's just north of Bristol.
Yeah, so it's so it's right by Maggie's.
Yeah.
Like right on that, right, you go down a little bit on State Road and it's right there.
Gotcha.
So, you know, I find so much irony in life. I think life's always trying to teach you something. You know, it's always trying to show you something.
Yeah.
You know, and you always think like, you know, when, you know, losing someone in your life, it's like, I've had really hard conversations with people about like, you know, how do you tell a mother who lost their child to a drunk driver that's justified, right? What I always try to say to them is like, you know, just trying to live through them and living by example, and then because when you do something that they would have done, that's when you think of them. You know, you always think of them when you do stuff through them. But yeah, I always find signs.
I just saw this, and back to. So I'm talking about Jared Gordon. So back to my remember I was saying I was like losing hope.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
So one thing that helped me was Jared Gordon was on Ariel Helwani's podcast, and he was talking about how he got sober and now he's in the UFC, and just hearing that, because like at the time, like I didn't know any, you know, heroin addicts that were not only able to get clean, but were able to like,
you could say fighters in recovery,
chase their dreams.
Right.
I didn't. That wasn't a common thing. So, but he just had a video recently, and I really don't want to butcher it, but he was basically saying that like sometimes, and on the topic that you were talking about, it's like, you know, so he was like, he basically said like God has a reason for everything, like whether we know it or not. And he was saying that, so his friend died, like his best friend died, and what he was saying was he didn't think that he would have gotten sober if it wasn't for his best friend dying. So like sometimes we don't know what the purpose is. Like why does like a 4-year-old kid get cancer and die? Like, how could God do that?
Right.
But, like, we don't understand what the reason is. And, like, with Jared's situation, it's like, okay, his best friend died. Why did that happen? But, you know, that led to him getting sober.
Yeah, it's that stuff always interests me. And there's really no clear answer for that. Because, like, he got sober because his friend died. But then you think of, like, the mom, the dad, the family, and shit like that. There's always that's a concept I really struggle with. Yeah. Is like everything happens for a reason, I think.
But then again, you can always say like, because Jared got sober, how many hundreds of thousands of people heard his story and he helped because of it. I'm one of them. I heard his story, even though that wasn't the reason I got sober, but it still gave me hope at that time.
It keeps you going. It keeps.
So we never know the result of like. Yes, like nobody should die. Like nobody deserves to get cancer. Nobody deserves that. But we don't know what the results of that are. What the effects of that happening
are. The butterfly effect. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you ever do public speaking? Yeah,
I'm speaking February 28th in Dallas.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I work with a nonprofit called the Grace Project, and I think you'd be great for that. They do guest speakers every year for their gala. Like I said, I was a huge part of it, and then when my DJing kind of like I really didn't have that time to be able to make time for it, but I help out in certain ways. But I think you'd be great for that. I think the world needs a lot more of that. I think the hope aspect of it, and like, you know, seeing someone who, you know, was in a jail cell, then all of a sudden is competing in the UFC, the top of the, you know, you have to understand like UFC is like the top of the best of the best, you know, and so
I appreciate you saying that, and I'm always open to helping others, especially if it's as simple as me sharing my story. Like that's when we're talking about the level of like effort, that's pretty minimal.
And do you find that to be like let me ask this, looking back, you know, where you were and where you're at now, what do you say you would be most grateful for?
My kids. My daughter.
I love that. And do you find, what do you find that she instills in you?
I never like experienced I don't mean to get like cheesy here, but like I just never experienced like love that's like what's the word?
Unconditional
love, right? So my whole life was like, Andre wins a wrestling match, yay. Andre does this, yay. Andre gets great, yay. It was all like dependent on something. Like Dude, my daughter does not care whether I win or lose my next fight. I come in that door whether I won or lost, and she's gonna run up and say, "Daddy." Like, that's unconditional love that I never experienced before. I just never. I can't explain it.
Do you think that there's? Trying to find a way to phrase it. Do you think people need to be ready to accept that kind of love? Like, do you think there's like a person needs to be at a point in their life to accept that kind of love?
I don't know.
It's a deep question. I literally just thought of it because
I mean, like I said, I'm very grateful that my kids like never had to watch me get high. Like, I had no kids when I was going through that. Like, thank God that I got clean before. My kids never have to grow up and see me at my
in that state. Yeah, and like,
so maybe I am more ready to receive that from her because of that.
Yeah. Like I said, I asked that just because everyone's at a point in their life where like they don't think they deserve a type of love because of the things they've done in the past, and to get it from a child, nonetheless, and to like, you know what, okay, like Riley coming and helping me after fight, like does that, trying to find a way to say it, but does it make you think, like, because obviously you receive love from her and she loves you unconditionally, but does it make it think like, okay, like, this I deserve this, like everything in your life, like with everything you've gone through, that like, having someone like Riley who can just come and just give you a hug, and no matter what, no matter how your day went, she has no clue. She was watching Disney Channel all day, whatever. Do you ever think that makes you like, does it help put things in perspective in your life by any chance? Not trying to make a hug super deep, but the way I like I said, just the way I look at it, because a lot of people are afraid of accepting
I think
love.
everyone deserves that.
Yeah.
I look at a lot of like friends that don't have kids, and not to knock it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and specifically like older, like people in their like 40s, 50s that never had kids, and I just don't know like if I would have ever had that shift in perspective where like a selfish life can only bring so much joy. Like, even if you can accomplish way more, like just by being totally focused on yourself and accomplishing your goals, like it just can only bring so much joy.
Yeah. I struggle with that a lot. So I'm like curious as to your mindset on that. So do you think you'd be where you're at today? I mean, it's obviously an easy question. I mean, you obviously have your children. Like, do you think you'd be where you're at today in your career, UFC career, recovery aside? Let's say, you were able to, get clean and you were able to be okay in recovery. Do you think you'd be where you're at today, UFC wise, if you were doing it by yourself?
Without kids.
Without kids. If you were just like, dude, I am so focused and driven that I'm gonna.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah.
At what cost?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. It's true.
Ask God. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and wrap up with this, but like, I'm curious about. I don't know if you saw the Mike Tyson interview about the word legacy.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that word legacy?
Well, and what did he say? He basically said his kids don't care.
Yeah, he said that
his kids don't know who he is.
Well, he said, so he had an interview with this little girl who I felt so bad for. It was all over Twitter. It was iconic, and
he always has some.
He's a legend. Yeah. So he basically said that no one's gonna give a shit when I die. No one's gonna give a shit about me. Like, in years from now, like, what does legacy even mean? Like, he basically just said that legacy is just a stupid word that people made up just to feel better about themselves. And I'm curious as to what you think legacy is, what you want it to be.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I'm proud of is the fact that, before me and Joey and Jeremiah and Pat and Sean, before that, the UFC fighters were like Eddie Alvarez, Paul Felder.
Yeah.
Both of them left Philadelphia, so they had to leave. So they go to Florida and Milwaukee. Like, we're part of the first. Before that, there was no UFC fighters from Philadelphia, so we're part of this first wave of UFC fighters that said, no, we're not going to leave our families. We're going to stay here and build in Philadelphia. And because of that, because of the decision that I, as well as my teammates, made to stay here, now everyone's coming to Philadelphia. All these Russians are coming to Philadelphia to pursue a career in MMA. Like, that was unheard of.
Yeah, big fish, small pond.
Right. So now, I mean, even if I lose all my fights, whatever, or I get cut tomorrow, like, dude, I was a part of that legacy of the start of MMA in Philadelphia.
That's true.
Yeah, like
True. Really true.
For me, I'm proud of that.
Yeah, that's true. You know, it's funny because that's always the toughest thing to do, though, is to set a trend. You know, where you make the trend. You know, there's the I don't even know where like Colby and them fought or wherever the hell those other gyms are, like in Utah and all this shit.
Yeah.
But like, there's something really cool and special about making Philadelphia home and building on top, because it's home for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and building on top of that home and you know, having the Russians, and who knows where it's going to be in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like who knows where your career is going to be in 5 years. It's like one of those things where like you guys have a real opportunity to build a home here, and you're already making shit happen. So, you know, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see where your career goes, man. Dude, I really appreciate you opening up and, you know, having like a real conversation, man. That's the whole point of this pod, is like have real conversations. I could talk to you till you're blue in the face about how great you are and all the shit you've done in your life, but like, I love to know where you weren't so great and where it brought you to this point in your life. Because to me, you know, bounce back stories are things that the world needs to see more of. So very happy you came on and shared your story, bro. I appreciate it.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, before I leave, let me shout out my my sponsor. This is Easy Auto.
Yeah.
This is a car dealership in Trevose on the Boulevard. They're the best.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what are they?
They got a fresh batch of Teslas.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any interest.
I just bought a CX-5, maybe
Lexus,
Mazda CX-5. Yeah, I'm not there yet.
So I used to have a Mazda 3, and it was like a white Mazda 3. It was super girly, but dude, that was like one of my favorite cars.
Oh, hell yeah.
The hatchback, I could fit anything. If I put the seats down, I could fit anything.
Yeah,
in there.
Mazda are the shit. I use it for all my weddings and stuff.
Dude, they run forever. Yeah, they're good cars.
Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah. But what's the company called? Easy Auto? Easy Auto. You have any other sponsors you've been working with?
Like I said, the Performance Meal Prep.
Yeah.
Fuji is they make gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, gis and gear and rash guards and stuff.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You I'll end off one last question. What's next for you?
Dude, fight in Philly. Bo Nickel. Let's go. Come on.
Well, dude, I appreciate coming on the pod, big dog. I appreciate you, man. Well,
thank you, brother.
Hope you guys enjoy this episode. I'm Kev Nichols. That's Andre Petroski. Peace, guys. Peace.